Welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson. I am Courtney Anderson. As always, I encourage you to come to CourtneyAnderson.com, share any feedback, show suggestions, ideas, or anything else that's on your mind. So today we have a show that's part of our MYTH Warriors series. And of course, this is our series where we are out in the world and we are going to be both offensive, meaning we're out there aggressively moving forward, and we're also going to be defensive. We're going to defend ourselves. And what are we doing? What are we battling against? What are we donning our battle gear as warriors? Well, myths. We're trying to find out what are the myths in life. What are the things that are fallacies, falsehood, lie, old wives' tale? I don't know. And look and also see things that maybe might be credible, might be actually a fact or something that we could begin to utilize in making sound and great, awesome decisions. And of course, we're always focused on our decisions helping us surpass our goals. So today in our Myth Warrior series, our show topic is we cannot create what we cannot or can't imagine. We cannot create what we can't imagine. We cannot create what we can't imagine. Now, this is a show topic that initially came to me in my research from one of my favorite poets, Lucille Clifton, and I have some information in the show notes. And so that the quote originally again came from that author, from that poet, an American poet who I've done other shows about some of her work and her ideas because I just find them to be so powerful. And so as I was putting the final research together for the show, though, I'm looking out to see where else has this concept, which we're testing to see, all right, that's the whole purpose of the show. We're testing to see, is it a myth, is it a lie? Meaning, if it's a lie, if it's a myth, if it's a falsehood, if it's a fallacy, it's not true, right? And then that means I can create what I can't imagine. Or, again, is it something that it is accurate? And so as I was out there putting together final show notes, I'm looking and I'm seeing this idea everywhere, right? And, you know, sometimes you go out and you do search engine sort of basic top-level research, and sometimes you're a little shocked by what you find. I didn't find anything disturbing, but what I did find was a lot of educational material, a lot of educators using this concept as a springboard for working to create curriculum, working with other teachers and faculty members. And then I also see it used for working with students, for conveying to students sort of this idea, you know, come on, students, let's get motivated, let's get imagination engaged so we can make things happen. And I can see that. I mean, certainly when I look at things and concepts like this and we're trying to determine, okay, how do we approach this to begin to maybe work through some solution sets to see if it's a myth or not? Something like this, right? You start talking about imagination, especially with people who don't really access this part of their life experience. So people who are sort of in a more rigid framework, and they'll say, look, stop talking to me about imagination, right? This isn't preschool. We're not talking about, Sesame Street or Mr. Rogers. We're not dealing with little kids doing imagination about all kinds of things, like the tooth fairy or something, potentially. And they say, give me facts, right? I need data, which is one of the things I often talk about. In fact, that's what this series is about. And actually, this show is about, to a large extent, the entire idea of solutions, right? Trying to get the best outcomes we can and surpass our goals. Yet, I would argue, even here at the outset of this episode, imagination is incredibly fundamental if we're going to achieve some of these more empirical, measurable, data-based goals, especially in the areas of business, certainly education. I'm going to argue law. I'm fascinated when I put my business professor hat on. And so that's, of course, one of the things I'm honored to do and I enjoy doing. I get to teach students, and at this point, I only teach graduate business students in master's degree programs, specifically Masters of Business Administration, MBA degrees. And so when we do this, we do a lot of looking to see, what other businesses have done in the past. I read a lot of what business theorists have put forward and ideas of, basically every aspect you can imagine of organizational development, leadership, management, decision-making, things of this nature. Yet it's, again, like I said, fascinating how often this idea of your imagination comes up as being really important, because in business you'll usually hear it referred to in things like innovation. And the whole idea there is, what's a better business than creating some brand new product or service that no one ever thought of before, or no one ever delivered like that before, and being the first to market because you have no competitors. You have a ton of pricing flexibility, because if there's demand and you don't have any competitors, certainly you have the ability to sort of move prices upwards. And you get to define yourself. I mean, there's nothing, I think, more emotionally exciting and rewarding than feeling special and being an innovator, or being known as the person who was the creator, or the person who implemented this new idea or product. It's exciting, and it's sort of the holy grail in a lot of our business literature and our business history and business, biographies. So my argument is simply this: at the outset, we can't discount this idea of, we're going to imagine things and then they'll just magically appear. That's not what the quote says at all, and it's not what the show says. I'm not talking about the idea that, and this is a whole separate idea that we visit, and we have other shows and programs about the idea where you just sort of visualize something in your imagination and then it sort of appears or manifests or comes to you. That's not what this quote says. This quote says, we cannot create. So it doesn't say that we can't conjure, right? That's something I think in my mind and it just sort of appears magically, like a magic lantern I rub and here's a genie and they give me 3 wishes. It says create. So that's right there distinguishing this idea from these things of just sort of manifestation, imagination, things coming to you, right? Because you dream of them, you imagine them, and then because you imagine that thing, it attracts in real life. It sort of just it comes to you like a magnet. It's attracted to you because you thought about it. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about creating something, because that's the word create is in the topic. So it says we cannot create. It's totally different, right? What we cannot or can't imagine. So this is tying the idea of imagination to the idea of creation. So I'm imagining it, which is similar to some of these other ideas, right? That I'm visualizing, I'm coming up with it maybe in my mind, which is part of the equation. But the other part is, then I'm going to go create something, which is at least in my interpretation, it implies that we're doing some sort of labor. We're doing it manually. We're doing it intellectually. I'm going to create it, right? I'm going to write it. I'm going to perform it. I'm going to build it. I'm going to create it. And so that's the question. Can I create? Can I create what I can't imagine? So coming at this, it's interesting. Like I said, in business and in many other disciplines, people will say, I'm not doing imaginary. I'm doing real life. Bring me the grit, the real life stuff. I don't want to sit here and talk about pretend imaginary things. And I put forward an argument that in business, if you can't innovate, if you can't come up with something even just slightly different, or have something that's maybe the same as everybody else's, but you market it slightly different. If you don't have anything that's slightly different, it's a differentiator, it's very difficult then for you to get out there and get other people to buy what you're selling if there's a lot of other people selling the same thing and you have nothing different, nothing in your marketing, nothing in your pricing, nothing in your support or servicing. I mean, nothing. It becomes really difficult, right? Unless you just compete on price. But then if you compete on price and you're driving the price down, at some point it becomes really difficult for you to make a profit. So my argument is that imagination is imperative. Somebody needs to be imagining something. And in fact, that's what a lot of these entire industries are built on: advertising and marketing, imagination. How are we going to sell this? How are we going to convey the essence of this product or service? Somebody better be imagining something, because if you're out there copying what other people have, then A, it's theft of somebody else's intellectual property and idea, and B, it's not going to do anything different for me. It's not, quote, new, right? It's the same old stuff. You better bring me something that somebody imagined on your team or in your group. Somebody better imagine something with the packaging, the font, I don't care, the coloring, something better be different, because if it isn't, what am I going to do with it? If it's something that somebody else has already done, then I can't use it usually, right? Because if they've done it and they own the idea, then I can't just steal what they've done and then put my name on it without them taking action against me legally to stop me from stealing their intellectual ideas. More specifically, their intellectual property, right? So what on earth can we do? Well, we want to unlock and begin to examine, am I able to create this new marketing, this new advertising, if I can't imagine it? As a lawyer, I mentioned in law, imagination is, in my argument, really important. Because if you're going into something that's high pressure, you're ideally would think of a court case. Litigation is usually high pressure and it's high risk, because you're asking somebody who you can't control, a judge or a jury, to make decisions, and you don't know what's going to happen. It's incredibly high risk. And if you don't have the imagination to imagine yourself up there giving a persuasive, information-laden presentation to sway the decision maker to make the decision you want, if you can't imagine that, typically you're going to have some problems. And one of the things that I think that this idea that we're still trying to see, is it a myth? Is it a myth? Is it a lie? Is it false? Or is it potentially an accurate assessment of something that we could potentially use in making decisions? It ties to me also somewhat to this idea of confidence, which we do other programs on more specifically, but this whole thing, and I hear it over and over and over again, and I have to say in the last year, I've had a couple of instances where I've been working with someone or talking to someone about somebody, let's say, who was trying to, work through starting a business, and they were discussing different business ideas, and then I was, saying things like, well, why don't you try this, or have you gone and thought about, marketing it to such and such demographic? And the person will say things like, oh, no, I've never done that before. I really don't know how to do that. And it's been frustrating for me, because I'm sitting here thinking, well, of course you've never done it before. That's the whole purpose of it being something new. If you already had done it, you wouldn't be asking me about it or talking to me about it, because you already know what you're doing, right? And I'm also thinking, if you're starting something new in life, then it's just like my law analogy a few minutes ago. It's high risk. I don't know what's going to happen. I could go in there and work as hard as I can and do my best and put on my case as a lawyer and, quote, fail. Meaning that even though I did my best and I worked really hard, I didn't get the outcome that my client wanted. They're not going to be happy. Now, that doesn't mean that in real life that they're not sophisticated enough to understand what happened. In the best case, of course, if possible, the client was able to be as much a part of the process as possible, so they can understand and feel like, okay, they had their input, they understood what happened, and it's easier for them to have watched in real time and have their own opinion about what happened in court. It's the same thing with starting a business. Yeah, it's high risk. I mean, it's never that has never happened before, right? So if you go to something as a lawyer, that event with those facts and those parties in that court, it's never happened. Obviously, if it had, you would be barred from going back there with the same exact question and issue. If you're starting a new business, you've never done it before, right? Now, it doesn't mean that business hasn't been done by other people. It means you haven't done it. Of course it's new. That's why it's high risk. That's why it's scary. The thing that should be, to me, exciting about all the high-risk, exciting things is the part that you don't know what's going to happen. To me, it's the rush and the thrill of the opposite of sort of a monotonous life, where I've mentioned in other programs, right, where you get up every day and it's just the repetitive thing that you did yesterday. Same time, same alarm clock, same commute, same time, same uniform, same office, same. It becomes drudgery for some people. That old commercial where the television, and I remember this commercial hasn't been on in I don't know how many decades, But somebody was showing that they were going to go make donuts, right, in this old TV commercials, and it would show like the person getting up, time to make the donuts, time to go make the donuts, and it was in this monotonous voice, like, oh, this is repetitive, right? So you either have that. Now, are these, sort of two ends of the spectrum, and I'm, making it where it seems much more of a contrast than it is, and there's a lot of middle space? Yes, of course, yes. Right. Everything you do in life, at some point, there becomes some routine to it. Even starting a new business or trying some big, huge case or anything else in life. At some point, certain elements of it do become repetitive just because you've done anything that you do over and over again. And the difference between something so routine that it becomes dull and that it becomes uninspiring and that you're not motivated or excited about it versus something that's really exciting and you wonder and you're nervous but you're excited. What's going to happen? I don't even know. It could be awesome. It could be super awesome. I hope it's at least minimally awesome. I mean, you don't know. And to me, that's exciting. That's what makes life really great because you get to have all these new adventures. All that's to say, can I have all these new adventures successfully if I don't believe it, if I don't imagine I can do it? Am I able to go out and start that new business if in my head I just keep thinking, I've never done this, I don't know what I'm going to do, the people are going to laugh at me, I'm not able to do this, I'm not good enough, they'll know, or any other type of situation where you're saying to yourself, I don't imagine me doing this. Are you able to say to yourself, I don't imagine me doing this, and then go out there just sort of magically and do it? My argument would be not consistently. Does it happen in real life where someone says, I never would have thought, I'll talk to people all the time, they'll say, well, I never would have ever thought I would have a family, with a lot of kids, and I was at a certain age in life, and I just thought there's no way, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, when you least expect it, and you're not looking forward to thinking about it, I met this wonderful person, and then boom, a few months later, we were married, and now I have 7 children. Okay. Does that happen? Yes. My argument would be, what's more probable? Is it more probable that I'm doing literally nothing to imagine an outcome? I don't even think the outcome's possible. In fact, I'm sabotaging myself and saying, I don't even want to forget about getting into a situation starting a family. I'm not even going to leave my place where I live other than to just maybe do work and go buy toilet paper. I'm not going to meet people. I'm not going to socialize. I'm not going to be friendly. I'm not going to try to date. I'm not going to do anything. Is it possible that you'll still sort of have something or you're in your own place and somebody stumbles into your life? Maybe they come to work on, repairing something and boom, that's the person for you. Yeah, it's totally possible. Is it more probable that you will have a better opportunity if you really wanted to meet someone and have a family, if you actually did make an attempt to get out amongst people, to socialize with people, to tell people that you were single and looking to meet somebody, going on dates? Would that raise the probable outcome of a better result? Yes. If I sit there and say, you know what, my dream would be to get a full-time job and I'm unemployed, but I am so over, job applications, I've done that and I hated it and it was depressing, I am over interviewing. Interviewing is like, dating, it's horrible, I'm sick of it, I don't ever want to do it again, so I'm not ever going to fill out any more job applications, I'm not going to go on any more job interviews, I'm just done. But my goal, of course, is to get a full-time job that I really enjoy and, an industry that I like, that pays me really well and has awesome benefits. Is it possible that the person who has said, I'm not going to do anything, I'm not going to create anything, I'm not going to spend any time looking for jobs, I'm not going to spend any time applying for jobs, I refuse to go on job interviews, is it possible that that person who has made all those decisions is going to sort of magically have a job fall in their lap? Yeah, of course it's possible. It could be that their, long dead great uncle's, best friend from the military's grandson heard about you through a family reunion and finds you on social media and says, oh my gosh, I have a great business and I've, heard about you and I think you'd be great for this really great job and it pays all, a ton of money and it's awesome and it's got all these great benefits and it's your dream job and here it is. Is it possible? Yes! Anything's possible. My argument, though, is if we're not doing anything to create these outcomes that we claim that we really want, it makes it more difficult. The probability is just lower. It's not impossible. I can't say anything's impossible because for all that we know, it's possible. I just don't have the data. I mean, that's I've shared with in other programs. One of the things I love about history, which is one of my favorite areas just of knowledge, and it was even my minor in my undergraduate college program, but that's just because I like history, is it helps you remember that we only see little snapshots of what's reality in our life because it's just a little period of time. If we were alive in the period where we thought the earth was flat, everybody believed that and nobody thought it was stupid. And then other scientists and creative people started to say, well, maybe it's not flat. People laughed at them, thought, well, that's silly. But the people who were very confident and calm and drew maps and everything based on this is what the world is, they weren't delusional necessarily. That's all the data they had, right? So I don't know what the future will unveil to show that, oh my goodness, things I think today are completely wrong just because I don't have enough information. That's all to say this. Our question is it possible that I can create something is it possible that I can have something that I create that I couldn't imagine? Is it possible? So I'm not imagining that I'm going to go on a job interview. I'm not imagining I'm going to try for an application, but magically I get the job. Is it possible? Yes. Is it possible that I sincerely want to meet someone and start a family, but I'm not going to ever go out and socialize or ever date or meet anybody? Is it possible that I'll meet the greatest person to ever start a family? Yes. I want to get in shape and get ready to run a marathon. Now, I've never run a marathon, and I can't even really imagine it. So because I can't imagine it, I'm not going to, do any of the marathon training that you usually do where you start off at shorter distances and over time, usually many months, you prepare for a marathon by going out and running these shorter distances and then interspersed with longer distances. They have groups that will do this to sort of get people up to speed. If I say to myself, I'm not into that, I'm not even imagining myself athletic at all. I'm not even going to go through any of this marathon training. I'm not going to do anything to change my eating habits. I'm not, and I'm just going to sort of think when the day comes, maybe I'll just get up, even though I'm not able to, I couldn't even walk maybe a mile, but maybe I'll just be able to kind of run 26 miles without doing anything, without manifesting any of these steps. Is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? No. So I made all these arguments, right? Business, law, starting your own business, finding people in your life for personal relationships, running a marathon. My argument is simply this. If you really can't imagine it, and not that you can't imagine it because you're really busy and you don't spend any time imagining, but my interpretation of this is you can't imagine it along the lines of what I said people have said to me. They'll say to me, I've never done that. I don't think it's, I'm not that thing. I can't do that. That's the kind of can't imagine that I interpret the quote. And from that perspective, if you really believe, if you think to yourself, you know what, I am not someone who can run 26 miles. And if the reality is that, we're 100 pounds overweight, we have a very sedentary lifestyle, we have very poor mobility to begin with, just sort of getting around, and then we don't change anything. We don't imagine ourselves to be able to become that, a marathon, successful, complete. I was going to say someone who walks it, but even somebody who can walk 26 miles is still pretty impressive. And I know it's a little bit more than 26 miles. The argument is that if you really believe in your mind that you cannot do that, you are not that thing. You're not that business owner. You're not that person who can come up with that great ad. You're not the person who's going to, be a spouse for someone. You're not someone who could be a mom. You're not someone who could be an athlete. You're not someone who could be a boss. If you really believe that you're not that, you can't imagine, right? I can't imagine me as a boss. I can't imagine me in this position. If you can't imagine it, are you going to be able to get out there and successfully, now I interjected successfully create it. Now, why did I do that? Because our whole program is about surpassing our goals. Now, I may not be able to imagine myself as, an athlete and then not do anything for a marathon and still get out there and say, look, I went to the marathon, right? I got up at the time the marathon started. I had signed up for it, registered. I got a T-shirt and a number, and I went over there, and I stood there with everybody else, and then they said, whatever, and they fired the start, and then everyone was moving, and then I moved for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then I stopped. Okay. Could you make the argument, so, see, I didn't imagine it, and then I did it, that you showed up at the marathon? Yeah. Have you actually achieved the goal or surpassed the goal? The goal, I would assume, would be to actually do it. Not just to say I went to the marathon, but, hey, if you registered and, almost always there's a fee, why not actually complete it? Showing up isn't anything. If you're unemployed and you're saying, oh, okay, I really want that job, and I'm sick of all the games, I'm sick of the interviews, I'm sick of all of this, and I'm not going to do any more, right? No application, no job interview. I'm just sick of all this. I'm sick of it. And then you say to somebody later, hey, I didn't actually get a job, but I've been watching a lot of movies about jobs, and I've been thinking about them, so that's good enough. Okay. If the goal is to create something that at some measure has a positive return, right? The issue is, are you able to do that? If you're unable, if you believe in your mind that you are not that thing, that you cannot be that thing, my argument is no. Now, one of the things that gives me a little bit of a being hesitant on this and saying that this is actually not a myth, right? That it's accurate. If you can't imagine it, it's very difficult to do it. Now, part of, like I said, what gives me a little hesitation is that there are many people who say to me, and certainly you can read about sort of an anecdote story arc that goes like this. I never imagined I would be a construction foreperson, and I just never imagined it. And then I met this mentor, or I had this teacher, or there was somebody in my life who said, you know what you should really do? You should go into construction. And I was like, no, me, I can't imagine it. But I went and did it anyway, and guess what? They were right. I'm the best at it, and I love it, and it's been so wonderful. You'll hear that story all the time, right? You even hear it on the reality TV shows, and there's so many of them now, where the main thing is people singing, right? So somebody says, oh, I never imagined myself as a singer. I never imagined myself as a performer. And then my fill-in-the-blank teacher, friend, relative told me that I should really try it. And I was like, I can't imagine it. And then I tried it. And look at me. I'm a internationally best-selling superstar, and everyone says how talented I am. So that's what gave me a little bit of pause. But that system where you can't imagine it, and then you think, oh, no, I could never do that. But then someone else sort of rides to your rescue and it's like, you can do it. I believe in you. Come on. All right. And I say that somewhat with a tinge of envy, because that's kind of a dream. That's a dream that I would love. I'd love for someone to come and sort of appear in my life and be my supporter and encourager and, hey, come on, you can do it. I believe in you. That would be awesome. I'd be suspicious at first because I've not really had that, but I guess if it was an authentic situation over time and I came to trust it, I think it would be wonderful. It really would. The challenge is, though, that's so dependent on things beyond our control. Like I said, that would be great, and it does happen to people, and I don't believe people aren't all being dishonest at all. That does happen where someone's like, I never imagined I could be a supervisor, and then my mentor or someone at my office or my greatest role model said to me, you can do this. Okay, I think that's beautiful and wonderful when it happens. And we've done other programs, we talk about mentoring, things like that. If it happens, it's great. And I'm not saying don't hope for it or don't look for it. I'm just saying don't wait on that, because it may not happen, or it may not happen in the time frame you expect, and then it gives you a situation where time could have been allocated to creating things on your own. So that's the little bit of hesitation I have, because I know that that's the feedback I get. And people say, well, I didn't do anything. And then all of a sudden, and that's, again, wonderful, and it's a great opportunity. It just isn't something that happens 100% of the time for everybody, and it also isn't something you can control. So if it doesn't happen, I don't want someone to then just not move forward trying to reach and surpass new goals because they're saying, well, I don't have anybody to come along to help me imagine I can do this. My argument would be, and has been in those other programs, you should imagine that you can do it. And I do believe this. You have to believe it's possible. If you can't convince yourself that you can be that thing or do that thing, how are you going to convince anybody else? Now, sometimes people can do that to a certain extent, but it will only take you so far, because the person who thinks, oh, I'm not, I'm really not this good at this thing, or if these people find out, they'll find out that I'm just sort of faking it, right? You fake it till you make it. The challenge is, if you at your core believe you're not that thing, you're not able to do that, it becomes difficult as time goes by for you to be able to maintain the best opportunity, because you start to feel like a fraud, and you feel like people are going to figure out that you're really not that good, or really not that smart, or really not that funny, or whatever. So I do support that this is not a myth, and that you really do have to be able to imagine it. And so much in life is just that, right? It's what you think. It's how I see myself. We talk about this in so many different programs. If you think you don't have what it takes to be a leader in your business, then you don't have what it takes to be a leader in business. I'm just telling you. And even if somebody promotes you and puts you in a leadership position, but you don't believe that you should be there, that manifests itself through your behavior and really bad choices, right? You get insecure, you're jealous of other people, you worry all the time, you micromanage. It leads to really bad outcomes. And you have to own, at least in your own sort of emotional and psychic space, a comfort level that gives you the ability to feel good about where you're engaging in. So my argument would be, yeah, you do have to imagine it. And if you cannot imagine yourself doing it, then you're not going to be able to create it in a way that's anywhere near successful or going to give you good outcomes. So my closing thoughts would be, my argument is this is not a myth, that this is an accurate idea. And I tried to give as many, probably too many, different types of examples where you would need to be able to imagine it. And then my argument and my, again, closing request for you would be, go sit and just imagine. Go sit quietly with yourself, right? So no television, no distractions, just sit quietly with yourself. If you're really busy, you don't have anywhere, it's your roommate, you have family everywhere, go in the bathroom, or just, you need to find quiet space. Walk out, walk outside, or in your car, or on the train with, do what you can to find a space with just your thoughts. And then I want you to just sit there and imagine. Just you. Not you, prettier, smarter, better off financially, in better shape. Not you with some sort of conditional, quote, improvement, but you as you are right now. You as you are right now. Right now. Can you imagine you as that? And my suggestion would be, I don't even care what you tell me your imagination is. I suggest the answer is yes. If you say to me, yeah, but I'm imagining that I'm going to go live on another planet. Good, I believe in that. Do it. Imagine it. Make it true. Do a whole story about how it would look. And one of the things that I do about things when I get really frightened and intimidated, which is relatively often, I will actually do this. I will sit in my quiet time and I'll ask myself, okay, what does the day look like if I'm this thing? Whatever the goal would be, right? What's my day like if I'm the person who does the marathon? What's my day like if I'm in this new work situation? And I imagine all of it. How do I live? What time do I get up? What's it like? And it seems maybe kind of silly, but I must say that you get a lot of goofy ideas, but you get a lot of actually really good ideas, and it also takes the idea of what's in your imagination, that's sort of just sort of a vague dream, and it makes it start to get on that path toward being a goal, because you're defining it. You're really thinking through what it would look like, right? And I find this to be an incredibly effective tool. And I have other programs where I go into more detail, but those are the things that I would strongly encourage you to do. Sit with your own imagination, work through whatever it is that you think might be a vague potential goal, come up with how it would look, how you would do it, and then you're going to start after you have that part finished. How would you create that? What are the steps you would take? So thank you again for joining me. I really appreciate this. And again, I encourage you to come to CourtneyAnderson.com if you have any feedback, show suggestions, or ideas. And I also would ask you, share with me. Share with me the things that you imagine and the things that you then go out and create in your life. I think that'll be really exciting for me to learn from you. Thank you so much.